Good evening. Welcome to the meeting of the Skokie Village Board for Monday, November the 20th, 2023. This evening, we will be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Village Clerk Pramod Shah.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The meeting will come to order, and I would like to ask for a motion for Trustee Kuhn to participate remotely this evening. A motion would be in order. Trustee Pierce-Slovan, seconded by Trustee Klein. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Sutker.
Aye.
Trustee Robinson.
Aye.
Trustee Johnson.
Aye.
Trustee Pierce-Slovan.
Aye.
Trustee Klein.
Aye.
Mayor Winters.
Aye, the motion passes. And with that, we will have the roll call. Next item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda for this evening's meeting. The motion is in order. Trustee Sutker, seconded by Trustee Klein. Is there anything on the consent agenda anybody would like to have removed? If not, call the roll, please.
Trustee Sutker.
Aye.
Trustee Robinson.
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn.
Aye.
Trustee Johnson.
Aye.
Trustee Pierce-Slovan.
Aye.
Trustee Klein.
Aye.
Mayor Winters.
Aye, the motions pass it. Next item is an award presentation, the Business of the Year Awards, presented by the Consumer Affairs Commission. And with us this evening is Biju Krishnan, the chairman of our commission. Biju?
Good evening, everybody. It's great to see everybody over here. Honorable Mayor, Mr. George Vanderson, distinguished members of the trustee board, and my fellow Skokie residents. The Village of Skokie and the Consumer Affairs Commission is excited to announce the winner and the honorable mention for 2023 Business of the Year Award. After receiving several nominations from community and reviewing additional information provided by the nominated business, the commission has selected Sol Good Coffee, owned by Christina Peirce. They're high quality and ethically sourced coffee and tea in the fun way, along with the rotating pastries and savory snacks. Their mission is to make it is very easy to approachable to give back to support to the nonprofit organization. One of the regular basis, the heart of the Sol Good Coffee is help others to connection with the cause, issues, and organization will be in long lasting. Being a mobile business, Sol Good Coffee aimed to foster a community and collective purpose in unique way, from meaningful conversation, creative drinks, shared experience, and give back opportunities. They have through something new and fresh to the Skokie. We have a small video to play it.
We can change the trajectory of someone's day by them stopping at the trailer for a cup of coffee.
Thank you.
Being Business of the Year is, it's the honor of a lifetime. I started this business just during a time where the world was on fire, right during COVID, and my only goal was to just spread joy through coffee. The trailer is a fun retro trailer. It has retro vibes. It's cute. It's basically a little coffee shop on wheels. It has everything that a regular brick and mortar coffee shop would have, and I think that's what really has attracted people to us. How cute it is, how cool it is, how fun it is.
They're really warm and very friendly. Christina knows people by name, the customers and stuff like that as well.
And it's great coffee.
So Skokie has been an incredible partner. I started this business not knowing anything. anything, let alone how to run a mobile business. I grew up on coffee. I'm a Latina. My family's Puerto Rican, right? So coffee is always at the center of any celebration, any table. That's where people are coming together around. Like every morning, that's what woke me up, the smell of coffee.
Or like we all kind of have it on our phone. Are they going to be here today? We're always checking to see their Instagram updates. Are they coming down to the ISCP today or is it tomorrow? So we keep tabs on their schedules that we know when they're going to be here.
I order coffee and cream and sugar. Just give me my jolt of caffeine.
Feel free to go. Yeah, no. Go, get your coffee.
So Good is a perfect example of an idea that was born from a single person and has now mushroomed into a full-blown successful business. We couldn't be more proud of the work that they have done.
Mr. Vanderson has it ended with.
I'm gonna touch a latte, but oh, mashallah.
What a touching story, right? About a small business being a successful business to a prosperity of the business. That's what is a successful business? What is a prosperity of business? Successful business is when you have a turnover or your revenue is growing each year and each month, that's became successful. But when you aid you're successful with the ethics, values, and compassion, that's make you more prosperity. That is what we just saw it on this video over here, how prosperity is this business from success to be prosperity. That's what the Skokie Village is all about it, and the Skokie is all about it, bringing success to prosperity. That's where we see it over here. With a great honor, I would like to invite Christina Perez to here to receive her award. Christina. It's very good. Can I invite the mayor to present the award, please?
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Tremendous success story. Oh. Now the only question is, where did you put this?
Somewhere in the trailer.
Also, I don't know if can I let out the other story?
Ask her.
She's going to be opening a place on Main Street, excuse me, a permanent brick and mortar store on Main Street.
Want to share some stories with us? And share. Come on, few words, yeah.
I mean, this is just such an honor. We're so grateful to be able to serve this community. Like, we love Skokie so much through this process. We've just grown to just love Skokie even more than we already do. 90% of my team lives here. My family lives here. So we're just thrilled to be able to be a part of this community, and we're just grateful for this honor.
Well, we are not done yet. There's more coming. In addition to the Business of the Year, we have a couple more honorable mentions that we would like to honor their names over here. While I'm calling their names, please acknowledge yourself, stand up, and come here. It has always been a very high task for us when the Consumer Affairs Commissions, when we meet to discuss about this business and how we award them, because it's always very challenging. One after another is always compassion and caring stories that are coming up like this. So it's very hard for us to make the selection, but we always have to find a winner, right? So the next honorable mention that we have it is the Charcoal Oven Restaurant, Maria Gregores and Rich Franco, the owners of Charcoal Oven Restaurant. Please come forward.
75 years.
The next honorable mention is Take Flight Spirit and Distillery, Carrie Carl. The last honorable mention we have it is Quawa House, the owner of Ariba Sheikh and store manager Ahmed Hamid. right, Curry, if you guys want to come forward, we can give you the award. Both of you guys. Yeah, come. Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Well, thank you so much. So excited. Okay.
Somebody smiley already got it. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you very much, and congratulations, Evan. Thank you.
I would like to point out one thing. The So Good Charcoal Oven, Take Flight, and KWA House all have one very important thing in common. It's not coffee, it's not liquor, although they both dabble in both, but it's the immense courage that they've all shown. They're all independent, small business proprietors. Charcoal Oven has been in business for 75 years. It is a great treat. If you have the opportunity, go. They make the best brandy Manhattan in the village. I spoke just briefly about So Good. Take Flight and KWA are both started by people who have an idea of what they want to do, what will bring happiness to them, as well as a little anxiousness. It's not easy going into business for yourself either during COVID or just immediately after COVID. But that is what each of them did. And it's bravery. It takes a lot to invest in yourself and in your community. And we're grateful for all four businesses. And thank you for everything that you've done as a role model for each of us and for everything that you do for our community. We appreciate it. And these awards are just a small measure of our respect for you. Thank you. And next, it gives me very great pleasure to introduce Ferdinand Soko, who is a member of the Board of Fire and Police Commission. And Ferdinand, before you get started, I would like to introduce our police chief, Baker, Police Chief Baker. DC Barnes is with us also. And I believe Fire Chief Hoflick is with us. And this evening, we have 3 new officers of the police department who will be sworn in. Ferdinand, it's all yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Van Dusen, trustees, Police Chief Baker, and all who are here on this very special evening. I would like to especially acknowledge the family and friends of tonight's appointees. This is a proud moment for all of you. Thank you. I extend my congratulations to you and thank you for supporting your loved one during their journey leading to this moment. Tonight, we will swear in 3 newly appointed police officers. We must never forget that men and women who serve as first responders deserve our admiration. They are often the first on the scene of a tragedy and provide security and comfort to those suffering. we invest our first responders with authority to promote and keep the peace. They have earned our support, respect, and gratitude, and it is my great honor to be part of this very special ceremony. Thank you. My call on Elizabeth Munoz, please. Raise your hand and repeat after me, please. I, please state your name,
I, Elizabeth Munoz,
do solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
do solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
State of Illinois,
State of Illinois,
the ordinances of the Village of Skokie,
the ordinances of the Village of Skokie,
and the rules and regulations
and the rules and regulations
of the Police Department
of the Police Department
and the Skokie Board of Fire and Police Commission,
and the Skokie Board of Fire and Police Commissioners,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of an officer, police officer, to the best of my ability.
of an officer to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. If you'll just sign here, please, and David.
Okay. Officer Munoz, would you introduce your family and friends who are here with you this evening?
Yes, I would like to thank my mother, four of my brothers and sisters for being here, as well as family friend and my father.
Thank you. Amanda? Lizzie? Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Amanda Levy,
Do solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
I do solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
State of Illinois,
State of Illinois,
the ordinances of the Village of Skokie,
the ordinances of the Village of Skokie,
the rules and regulations
the rules and regulations
of the Police Department
of the Police Department,
and the Skokie Board of Fire and Police Commission,
and the Skokie Board of Fire and Police Commissioners,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of a police officer to the best of my ability.
of a police officer to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Again, Officer Levy, would you introduce your family and friends?
Sure. My mother is here tonight, Jody. My father and his wife, April. My boyfriend, Jake, and my cousin, Sydney, and her husband, Tommy, and their daughter, Kinsley.
Abby. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Abhishek Ghosh,
Do solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
do solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
State of Illinois,
State of Illinois,
the ordinances of the Village of Skokie,
the ordinances of the Village of Skokie,
and the rules and regulations
and the rules and regulations
of the Police Department
of the Police Department
and the Skokie Board of Fire and Police Commissioners,
and the Skokie Board of Police and Fire Board Commissions,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of a police officer to the best of my ability.
of police officer to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
And Officer Ghosh, would you introduce your family and friends?
They're not present here tonight.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I would like to recognize Will Evans. I think Will Evans is here. He's Chairman of the Board of Fire and Police Commission, and Helene Levine, another member of the board, is here with us. Thank you for everything.
Bruce Bratner.
And Nicole are here too.
Bruce Bratner is
Wait a
here.
minute, is Bruce?
Yes, he
Bruce.
is.
Oh, Bruce, you're hiding us, and Nicole. There we go, okay. The entire Board of Fire and Police Commissioners is with us this evening. Thank you for all of your hard work, and congratulations. This is a momentous event for you, but it's also an important event for the village of Skokie. We're very proud of the professionalism of our department. You've met some of the members of the department already, so I'm sure you're aware what a great group it is. It's one of the very few departments in the country that is a flagship and is fully accredited. But it's more than just that. The people who live in the village have tremendously high regard for our police department and our fire department. They're the men and women who go into danger when the rest of us are retreating. And I can't say enough, and I don't think the people of the village of Skokie can say enough. And just as a small example of that,
Thank you. Thank you,
Trustee
Mayor.
Pure Slovan has a presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief Baker, can you hear me? I don't know if this is working. Thank you. Chief Baker, I've been asked by the Jewish community to submit to you and all the officers a recognition of all of the support that you have given to the Jewish community at a time where we feel that we need additional support, I'll say it that way. And especially, you'll see that they recognize what you did at the empty Shabbat table, that recognize the hostages, and your department has gone above and beyond the call of duty. And on behalf of those who asked me to submit these to you, these letters, we thank you. We thank all of you so very much.
And then we will take a break, but just 1 second. I would like to introduce Ariba Shak and Ahmed Hamdan. Congratulations. Stand up so everybody can see you. They are the owners of Kewa House on Tui Avenue, just a little to the east of the Holiday Inn. And they opened the coffee shop themselves, and it's great coffee, by the way. It's got a unique touch to it. I suggest everybody try that. So good in the morning, KY in the afternoon. They do a thank you for everything. Let's take a break of 5 minutes or so we can congratulate the winners of the Business of the Year Awards and congratulate our new police officers.
John, I'm really. Yeah.
Meeting of the board will resume. Next item on the agenda is report of our village manager, John Lockerbie.
Thank you, Mayor Van Duzen and Village Board, and good evening, everyone. My report this evening is to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, and that completes my report.
Next item on the agenda is report of our corporation counsel, Michael Lorge.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. Thank you, John, for the greeting. The items A and B were ordinances. At the beginning of this meeting on my consent agenda part of the report, and item C was a resolution also on the consent agenda, all three of which were approved at that time. Item D on the agenda tonight from my report is stated for third reading and adoption. The first reading was on May 15th, 2023, and the second reading was on September 5th, 2023. This ordinance will amend chapters 46 and 58 of the Skokie Village Code by adding language related to the village board's discussions concerning affordable housing and inclusionary zoning. The ordinance endeavors to synthesize the Board of Trustees' discussions and direction, public comments, stakeholder input, and the Plan Commission's presentation to the Village Board. As a result, revisions have been made to this ordinance since the first reading on May 15th and also since the second reading on September 5th. The most recent changes that were made since September 5th are as follows. First, some extraneous language in the definitions and procedural paragraphs concerning owner-occupied property have been removed until such time as provisions for owner-occupied development and the land trust are added to the village code. It is intended that further work on a program for land trust will be undertaken. Second, relief from off-street parking requirements have been added to incentivize developers to provide on-site affordable housing as recommended by many stakeholders from all positions on the issue of affordable housing. Third, the tiered requirements were adjusted to recognize and respond to development projects over 150 total dwelling units that do not use TIF funding as compared to those that do use TIF fundings by introducing a 7% and 10% differential. Finally, in the new section which created an affordable housing renovation grant program, a provision to cap these expenditures has been added as requested for annual grants to not exceed an aggregate amount of $300,000 per year, so that any in lieu funding will also be available for new construction as those programs are developed. There is a new memo attached from village staff which updates trends in economic development and construction projects as they relate to affordable housing in the area. Mayor, I request board action tonight.
Thank you. A motion is in order. Trustee Sucker, seconded by Trustee Robinson. Johanna, do you have any remarks you would like to make? There's a very good report that Johanna and John have forwarded to the board, and I think it would be helpful to go through the report before we get into comments.
Good evening, everyone. Johanna Neiden, Community Development Director. We've included a memo that summarizes some of the changing market conditions and an update since we began the discussion of an inclusionary housing ordinance nearly a year ago. As the memo has indicated, when we started this journey a little bit over almost 18 months ago, we had about a little over 1,000 units that were under contemplation for development. Today we stand at, of those approved projects, several are moving forward and working through some pre-development activities. One notable one at Toohey and Linder, 5404 Toohey Avenue, is determined that they cannot move forward with their residential component. Namely, and this is, as you recall, this is a property that's owned by owned by the developer already, so there isn't a sale price to negotiate here, but they're just finding a very challenging financing market. And we're hearing that time again as we talk to developers about various sites, about opportunities in the village, just generally just doing our due diligence in general to understand what the development climate is, to just stay on top of those, of the tone of the region and the current market cycle. Financing is very hard. The memo also highlights several of the areas that are proving challenging. The overall cost of development to borrow money. It's not just a construction loan. Lenders don't want to give the full amount. They ask for more equity, which requires those developers to go out into the market and find private money. And that often is not the first position, so it's a little bit more costly money. There's a higher interest rate. The terms might be a little more challenging. That's harder money to find, and that's just not there where it was even a year ago. So that's one of the big pieces. We know everything costs a little bit more than it did. It may even cost a little bit more than a little bit. Things are more expensive. Labor is a little bit more expensive. Our region is not exactly one of the more welcoming regions to construction right now. One of the things the developers tell us is they're just putting pause on Cook County, northeastern Illinois projects right now. They're moving to markets like Colorado, North Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, where the conditions for materials, for labor, for even lending, for private money is just different. Our property tax structure in Cook County has also proved a little bit challenging as well. While not any one of these factors are singularly responsible, they're all facilitating a little bit of a drag that's making it harder to do development. So we're optimistic that several of these projects will move forward, and the ones that we continue to entitle will move forward. We have a lot of good interest in Skokie. Developers like to come to Skokie. They find this a great opportunity, a great community. They cite all the things that we know and love about this community, and certainly this evening's, the top of the meeting helps prove our point. But the market is the market, and very smart developers are finding it very difficult to do really good development that they want to do, and feeling confident that the market isn't going to hurt them once they get a project underway. So that's the conversations that we have with developers. They're optimistic, but they're also very, very cautious right now for all those factors. So moving ahead with an inclusionary housing ordinance, we just wanted to make everybody aware of some of the conditions and shed light on the conversations that we've had. We continue to do work to make sure that we are a welcoming and supportive community to affordable housing. As has been noted in the village's commitment to affordable housing, our ongoing property tax freeze. We're looking at several new grants that have become available through the federal government, both through that involve sustainability and resilience, but also there's some increased efforts to look at how we convert existing land uses that may not be used anymore, such as office space, into housing. That just came online within the past few weeks, so we're looking to see how we might be able to facilitate some of those projects, if that is an opportunity that's available to the village or properties in the village. We are underway with our update to the housing chapter of the comprehensive plan. Again, being supportive of our goals and objectives for housing. That was a directive from this past May with the adoption of the recommendations from the Plan Commission. We're moving forward with that, helping better articulate our goals and desires for developers. And finally, as was mentioned, we're going to work on bringing forward the discussion of the land trust early next year and what that would look like. So all of these things in concert move forward our goals for affordable housing and being a welcoming community, helping support people finding housing options and supporting the variety of housing options. But the market has changed. It's become more challenging to development, and we've tried to work to build a inclusionary housing ordinance that reflects that. So you'll see the little tweaks, the tiered percentages for different developments support that, and we think that this meets the moment for what we need for this and for the development community. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, what I would like to do is start with Trustee Sucker and then just make our way around. Comments, questions. Trustee Sucker.
I just want to clarify that there's a difference between inclusionary housing and just affordable housing in general, that the purpose of inclusionary housing is to have a mix of incomes, and inclusionary housing is also another housing stock that would be different from the other affordable housing that we have in the community. I just wondered if you could speak to that a little bit.
Sure. So an inclusionary housing ordinance would require a certain number of units in a new development. So affordable housing is affordable housing. It's affordable to certain area median income levels, and usually the number that we talk about are low and moderate income households, which are 60 and 80% of area median income. Inclusionary housing is the requirement to include those new units at a certain affordability level in housing. So as we've talked about at other meetings, different communities require different inclusionary housing. So inclusionary housing would be under a subset of affordable housing.
Sure.
And also, just to go over the 60 to 80%, I just wonder, I just want to make sure people, including myself, understand what the income levels are, because I know as a social worker, my new social workers coming into the agency are in that 60% to 80% range, or preschool teachers are in that 60 to 80% range, and I think I just want to make sure I understand the income amounts.
So, bear with me, I threw a bit of paper. So if you are, it depends on the household size. So let's just say you're a household of 4 at 60% of area median income, you'd be earning $62,520 a year. But if you're a household of 1, that 60% of AMI drops, so it's $43,800. 80% of AMI for that 4-person household is $83,350, and for a 1-person household, that's $58,350.
So like going back to like a new social worker starting at an agency, they would fit into that category, and also preschool teachers would, as well as, and also essential workers. Is that pretty much?
If they're a 1-person household,
Yeah.
yes. But if
Okay.
their household includes another adult who earns income at the same level, then maybe they'd go up a little bit, but it's how much the household is earning,
No,
not the
yeah.
individual. But if the
Okay.
individual's their own household, then it's just the individual.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Trustee Robinson.
Thank you. Man, last year when we first began the discussion about just doing a deeper dive into affordable housing and inclusionary housing and what that would look like, I certainly wish I had a crystal ball. You know, my whole dream was to have something this year in place. You know, I'm looking at so many of the public comments and just want to thank so many people in the community who expressed their concerns to the board. And it's a lot. And I think what resonated with me most is what you just said. The market is the market. So the question is, can you talk just a little bit more about the market then and now, and what, if you had a crystal ball, what is the impact, the trends, you know, where do we kind of fit?
I think there's a little bit of, many of us have lived through the Great Recession, and most of the developers have that experience of being burned pretty significantly and surviving. And so you're gonna get probably a more cautious group of people who are not, I mean, they're still gonna be brave and take these chances. I think you're gonna always see a pretty positive group of people that wanna do development. This is what they do. They need to think about their next deal. They need to think about the next project. So I think Skokie is very relevant in this. I don't think this is gonna mean a drastic dry spell for Skokie development or development on the North Shore. People wanna be here. This is Chicago is a compelling region to be. I just think we're gonna see probably smaller product types of maybe not going 500 units, maybe low-rise townhomes. I think we're already seeing a little bit of that. The pivot at 4600 Main from a multifamily with townhomes, they couldn't bring the height down. they wanted to accommodate the neighbors, so they changed the product type to townhomes. So we went from several hundred units to 68 townhomes, because that was something that still made sense financially. I think you might see more of that. You might see people holding on to a property a little longer, and waiting. You might just see people taking a pass right now. There's things that are, but that they're keeping an eye. The conversations that we've had with developers is, call me when things might be a little better. We like Skokie, we like this area, we like Chicago, our footprint is here in Chicago, our home base is, but we have several deals in Denver right now. And they're just, staff is that they're not gonna staff up. This might be a little more information than you want, but from a capacity, the developers can't just, they need staff to do their work too. So if they've just sent their crews to do Denver work or North Carolina work, they're not necessarily prepared to come and do plan commission permitting in Chicago, because they've just sent all those people, even if they're still here, but they're in doing other things. They have bandwidth too, and they're not gonna staff up for these opportunities either.
So you said when things are a little better. What qualifies being a little better?
I think what qualifies as a little better is maybe when money frees up a little bit, where they don't have, maybe the banks have a little bit more openness to lending at a lower rate. The Fed doesn't show any indication of lowering the rate right now, but maybe the banks will lend a little bit more, so they don't have to go get that chunk of private equity. That second, the bank loan isn't the challenge, it's that second money in, that where they're not the first position, where they don't necessarily have access to all the money, and they're just the second position. Nobody wants to be the second or third or fourth position. So I think we are a relevant region. We are an important place in this country, but we're seeing a slower process right now.
Thank you.
If I can interject just for a second to help answer the question. I was talking to a developer the other day, and I asked him what his position was, not on low and moderate income housing, but in the development industry. And he does mixed development. He does commercial and residential. And he said that supply chain has slowed him down. He can't do a development in a couple months, 3 months now. He's got to figure 6, 8 months. His fundraising, Johanna was just talking about it. The supplies for building itself, cement, he was telling me that the cost of cement has gone up 25% this year. And he said at the beginning of the year, he would never have put that kind of cost in a perspective. Now, he said he's very cautious about that, and the cost of property. And I asked him, could you give me an idea of how these costs have impacted you? And he said, 3 years ago, his costs went up 8%. 2 years ago, they went up 7%. This year, they're back to 8%. And he said his concern is pricing himself out of the market. And he's not doing anything right now. He says, as Johanna was referring to, he just said, I'm pausing until Fed finishes its business, inflation generally comes down. And he said he didn't expect to do any business in this area, not just Skokie, in this area, for probably a minimum of another year. And he is a well-respected developer. Many people here would know who he is. Trustee Johnson.
Would Trustee Kuhn like to go?
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, gosh, I did it again. Trustee Kuhn.
No, I don't have any questions at this time.
I have a number of comments. Based on the conversation we've just had, I just also want to, say that we're talking a lot about the market. We're talking a lot about the strains on developers, and I think we need to remember the needs of Skokie residents and the needs of renters, especially. We've gotten a lot of local data in the past 9-10 months, and it all shows that the majority of Skokie renters are very housing cost burdened right now. We have residents that are paying 40, 50, 60, 70% of their income on housing. So the need for affordable housing is really great right now. I have a handout that I want to pass out. This is from our board agenda on May 1st. This is the one-page draft parameters for an inclusionary housing ordinance that we approved at the very start of this process. And I'm passing this out because I want to kind of compare this to the ordinance that we have in front of us to show how what we're voting on tonight is I would argue, a much more watered down, kind of diminished version of what we started with back in May. I'll pass these down. And I put a little asterisk on, I have some extra copies here if someone wants to see it. I put asterisks on the items that we set out on in April, May that have been tweaked or reduced. For example, the applicability of this ordinance was going to apply for sale and rental residential projects. Now it's only applying to rental. The requirement for on-site units, this is the big one. For months and months and months, we have been talking about 2 tiers, 5%, 10%. And now here at the last minute, just 4 days ago, we've introduced this new tier. The zoning relief section, we had talked about considering inclusion of relief for parking, height, other zoning requirements. We didn't really get to that. For affordability levels, we said that they would be evenly split between 60% at AMI and 80% AMI. The way this ordinance reads, we're going to get a lot more 80% than 60%. It's not going to be an even split. And then we have this whole issue with fee in lieu. It was very clear from our staff recommendations and our Plan Commission recommendations that the priority was always supposed to be on-site affordable units, and that has really switched slowly. The priority of this ordinance is really the fee in lieu, because we're basically not requiring any on-site affordable units in any development up to 150 units. And most of the residential projects that we've seen so far this term have all been under 150 units, and our development director just talked about how perhaps many developers are downscaling. So there was no mention in here of a 40-year sunset clause. The idea was this would be an ordinance in perpetuity, or that this would be a policy in perpetuity. Colleagues, I just want to also just stress this main point in the fee in lieu section, because I think it says it all. The goal of an inclusionary housing ordinance is to build new affordable housing units. That is the goal. So if we are not going to require any new affordable housing units in any projects up to 150 units, this kind of just amounts to a fee on developers. And yeah, I've already probably said a lot, but the point being, I think there's a number of ways to get back to what we started with. Before we vote on this tonight, I'm absolutely going to make a motion to go back to the 5-10% tiers that we had at the last reading. This, I'll be arguing later against the 7% tier that's been introduced here at the last minute.
Trustee Pierce-Logan.
Thank you, Mayor. I think I've been on record from the beginning about the 5-10% that I was not in agreement with it. And it's not because I don't want affordable housing. I don't believe, honestly, that it addresses the need of residents who do need affordable housing. I've been on record as saying that I believe it should be in lieu of, and that you made a case that we have residences, we have rentals. I think we need to invest in the rentals that are here. I think that people are living in substandard buildings because of the unfortunate ability of their landlords to give them, to have better housing. I think in lieu of gives a better outcome for what we're trying to achieve. I don't believe that, I'm also very against the 40% sunset clause that you reiterated. So at the moment, I don't find what we have done to meet the needs of the residents who need affordable housing. I don't believe addresses the seniors who need affordable housing. I don't believe that we have done our job to ensure that we that we created affordable housing for the residents of Skokie. And, I think that there's other ways to be doing it. I thank those who sent us a proposal with different kinds of ideas so that we make it, available for, builders to build in the, Skokie. And now we hear that that might be, at a little bit of a standstill because of what's going on economically. So I think we have to reevaluate it. I am not in favor of the proposal as written. Thank you.
Trustee Klein.
Thank you. Johanna, I have a couple of questions, concerns. The first one is you mentioned developers, and this afternoon I received a letter signed by a bunch of developers. Did you get a copy of that?
We all did. I don't think so.
Okay.
All trustees did.
Well, I was asking if she did. She's the pro from Dover. So, okay, then I'm not gonna, go into that. Another point I wanted to make is Trustee Robinson used the term crystal ball. And a municipality, a community, a block, a cul-de-sac, to me, is a living, breathing entity that changes. I do not have a crystal ball that tells me what's gonna happen 40 years in the future. As a compromise, I propose a 20-year limit on it, because we do not know what's coming. And if we are to vote on this tonight, I would like to make a motion that we change the 40 to 20. And I would like to vote on that first, because that would determine my vote on the entire project. Thank you.
I would like to make a couple of comments and then ask any other members of the board who have further comments, and then invite the public to present their comments to us. I'd like to put what we're doing this evening in a little bit of context. If the village board does pass an inclusionary ordinance this evening, this will be a step for the board in the right direction. It'll be the first time in our history that we have passed inclusionary zoning. In the metropolitan region, there are 275 municipalities. Only 8 have an inclusionary zoning ordinance. Every community does what it thinks is best for itself. I've come to the conclusion, after a great deal of thinking, talking to developers, talking to residents, that we do need to have inclusionary zoning. I believe that developers are going to come back at some point. It's going to be a while, at least a year or two, it would seem to me. Looking at the list, starting with 5404 Toohey Avenue, 494 units, it's a substantial development by a substantial developer. He has done a large project in a neighboring community. And my understanding is that he's decided not to go forward with the residential and Toohey, because at this time, the economy is too difficult, and his experience in the current development was very difficult, and the financing was especially difficult. 5400 Old Orchard Road is moving ahead. The other two, 5047 Skokie Boulevard, 86 Niles Center Road, we don't know. Those may not go ahead. If we take the one that we know is moving forward, the Old Orchard Road, that gives us 294 units out of 1,036, if my arithmetic is correct. That's approximately 30% of the units. The market tells us something. And I think what the market is telling us is, go lightly. If you want development, go lightly. Watch what you're doing. It isn't just Skokie that is experiencing this, it's the entire region. So I believe this evening what we should do is endorse the principle of inclusionary zoning. And I think this ordinance puts us on that glide path. There are elements of it that I'm hopeful in the near future we can amend the ordinance and change things. But for now, November 20th, 2023, I think this is the very best that we can do. That does not mean that in another year, another 6 months, another couple of years, we cannot amend this. We amend ordinances frequently. And in this case, I think we certainly can. And so I would encourage a yes vote on this ordinance as it has been presented. Trustee Sucker, do you have any other comments or questions? Trustee Robinson, do you have anything further?
I'm good.
Okay. Trustee Kuhn?
No, no comments.
Okay. Trustee Johnson?
I'm going to focus on the new 7% tier. So since March, and I will make a motion, but since March, we've been talking about 2 tiers. 5% for buildings with under 150 units, 10% for buildings with over 150 units. And here at the last minute, we've introduced this middle tier, 7%. And so it's 7% for buildings with over 150 units that do not require TIF assistance.
Privately financed.
And 10% for projects over 150 units with TIF assistance. I had asked you about this, John. Has the village ever had a over 150 unit building that received TIF assistance?
No, the village has been working to establish the rental market in town, and so 8,000 North at High Point was really the first new construction rental property, and that is in a TIF, and it's of 142 units.
So it's close.
It's close.
Are there any projects in the work that we could see over 150 units requiring TIF assistance?
Not at this time. The developments that are being contemplated or not.
I'm asking these questions only because if we've never had a development like this and there's none anticipated, then this 10% category is now kind of in effect a little useless. The developments that are moving forward are going to fall under that 7% category. So in effect, we are just decreasing this 10% to 7%. That's in effect what's happening. Given that this entire process, we've talked about the 5%, 10%. We even voted on this. I don't know if y'all remember, I think it was our May 1st meeting. We voted on the 5%, 10%, and we voted to proceed as a board together. Since the 10% is a little useless and we're kind of in effect changing the 5-10 to a 5-7, I move that we eliminate the additional 7% tier in the latest draft of this ordinance, and that we return to the original 5 and 10% tiers from the last draft of this ordinance.
And motion dies for lack of a second.
And, oh,
Well, I would
I'm
second
sorry.
that.
thank you.
I'm sorry, okay.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
And do we have time for discussion?
Sure, of course.
I would like to hear from others, since we've never talked about this 7% tier before. So now that the motion's on the table, what advantage, why would we add a new tier to this at the last minute?
Because we can always, in a year or so, increase it to 10%. You're not going to take 10% and decrease it. As a practical matter, that the board is never, ever going to do that. And given the state of the economy as Johanna has just presented it, 10% will be a killer.
I just want, in all of our discussions when we talked about 10%, the attitude was always, well, we can always increase it later. You know, residents have pointed out so many times that the average for an inclusionary housing ordinance is about 15%. And some communities go to 20% or higher. So I don't know.
Some have zero.
Some have zero.
Because they don't have an inclusionary zoning.
Why decrease it to 7% here at the last minute?
I just explained. Read Johanna and John's report. If you want to kill projects, then go up to 10%. I'm telling you, it will. I have yet to have a developer in today's economy say, yes, I can make 10% work.
Mayor, what you're calling a killer is what we had decided on for the past 9 months.
It was in May.
Since March, I guess.
March.
Is when the.
And as I mentioned before, having talked to different developers, they have uniformly said that their expenses are going up. When the cost of cement has gone up 25%, that gets your attention. And little things like 7%, 10%, you say, well, it's only 3%. That very well can be the margin that makes a project go or not go. And that's why I support 7%. These percentages can be changed if necessary. But I think that the last time a municipality passed an inclusionary zoning ordinance, I believe, Johanna, I believe it was Arlington Heights in 2020. I believe it was something like in August of 2020.
I think that's about right. I'm just looking at the notes.
There's a reason why inclusionary zoning has only been passed in 8 municipalities out of 275. There's a reason. And yes, 7% is cautious. And I would love to be proved wrong. But I'm pretty sure, from having talked to a lot of different people, that 7% is cautious, and it certainly gets us there. And I might point out that Arlington Heights, in fact, had it here. They're at 7.5% in their downtown area, and they're 5% privately funded and 10% if publicly funded. Go drive around Arlington Heights. They've done a marvelous job there. And what I'm simply suggesting in this ordinance is basically what Arlington Heights has done. And you can, obviously, we have a motion on the table. Does anybody else have any comment?
Are we gonna vote on this motion first?
Yeah.
You have to
but-
vote.
Well, let's vote on it. I'll just say, Mayor, I appreciate your comments a lot. I respect your opinion. I'll just ask the board to keep what we've had since March. I think it's a little late in the game to change this last minute and to downgrade this. So, yeah.
Just one quick comment about what Trustee Johnson just said. He said that many residents have wanted 10% or more, in terms of inclusionary housing, I'd like to point out you're speaking for some residents and not all residents.
Oh, sure, we've had residents who don't want us
That
to.
are absolutely not in favor of
Absolutely, absolutely.
5% or 10%. So I think we have to look at other residents' opinions as well.
Sure. We've heard a lot of opinions.
Call the roll.
Which motion are we?
The motion is instead of 7% to increase it to 10%.
Or no, to go back to what, not
5
to
to
increase it, but
10%.
just to have what we
Well,
had in the last
okay.
draft.
Okay.
Yeah, 5-10%.
Trustee Sutker.
This is pretty complicated, but since if we don't have new development, we won't have any inclusionary housing, and I really want us to have an inclusionary housing ordinance on the record, I'm gonna vote no.
Trustee Robinson.
No.
Trustee Kuhn.
No.
Trustee Johnson.
I vote aye.
Trustee Pure Slovan.
No.
Trustee Klein.
No.
Mayor Van Dusen.
No, the motion fails.
What's next?
I know we gotta move on. I'll just say, I'm disappointed that we've changed this last minute after keeping these tiers for so long, but let's move on.
Trustee Pure Sullivan, do you have any comments?
Yes, thank you. I just want to again reinstate that I am not against inclusionary housing. I am in favor of affordable housing. However, I do not believe that this ordinance adequately solves the problem. I've never been in favor of the 5-10%, and I do believe that there's other ways that we can create inclusionary housing, and I do not support it as written. Thank you.
Trustee Klein.
Just one last question. I just need a clarification on the relief of the parking for the residential. Can you give me what's proposed?
Yeah, so it's here to telegraph the understanding that parking is one of those big, I'd say, parking is the number one thing that the developers say is a big challenge, any development. It's the concrete and that's a very expensive component. So the idea would be that we would find a way to reduce the parking and the not requiring the affordable units to have a parking space on site would be one way to do that, reducing those parking counts. So for example, in our downtown, each unit is required to have one parking plus 0.25 guest parking spaces. So if you didn't have that extra parking space requirement, doesn't necessarily mean you wouldn't provide a parking space, you just wouldn't build it. There'd be less parking because it's in an area that might have more density. Households are more likely to take the train.
Would you still require one per unit?
We still would require, but we would, if the developer saw it, developers know their business. They know how many parking spaces they would need. They've done the market studies. Those, if they sought relief from the parking requirement to reduce the overall parking, they're gonna put 5 units and they wanted 5 less parking spaces because that reduced their overall cost. That would be a relief that we could grant them.
Would we be giving them relief from the buyout, where they can buy out of the parking?
To clarify, forgive me, just to clarify, the relief from parking is only in situations where the on-site affordable housing is being done. If they're not doing on-site affordable housing, then in theory, they're gonna have to pay in lieu into the fund, but they then would have to fulfill the parking requirement as it appears in the code. You don't get relief and get out of putting affordable housing on the property. It's only if you are, is that clear? Okay.
Thanks, appreciate it.
I would like to invite anybody who wishes to comment, anybody who does, please come to the microphone and give us your name, please. Standard rules apply. Everybody gets 3 minutes to speak, and I will strictly enforce 3 minutes, so everybody has an equal amount of time.
Hi, my name is Lauren Gradnicki. This is why I couldn't sit up there. I agree with trustees Johnson and Pure Slovan that this ordinance doesn't go far enough in a couple of directions. I agree with the mayor that we need to signal to developers that we're serious about inclusionary zoning. The mayor's comments tonight alleviate concerns that others have shared with me that by passing this watered-down version of the original ordinance, the board would say, okay, we can check that off the list. Is this better than no ordinance? I don't know. I'm not an economist. I agree with Trustee Klein that we don't know what the situation will be in 40 years from now. With the changes to the climate that will be here then, I expect people will be moving here in droves from the south. Right now, people are moving to places like Texas and Florida, but they're not thinking about climate change, and when they're told what the climate is expected to be like in 15 to 20 years there, they change their mind. 2/3 of them change their mind and are like, oh, never mind, I'm not moving there. So there will be climate refugees here at that point. I'm not going to take you down the road of what things will likely be like socially and economically at that point, but I would like to share with you what I found from the city of Chicago that the press office of the mayor posted in May, which is that the city of Chicago has announced 2 additional office to residential conversion proposals to the next stage of review process as part of the LaSalle Street Reimagined initiative. And they're going to have about 300 affordable units, which is about 30% affordability there, and many of them are getting TIF funding. So I just wanted to put that out there. Maybe those are the developers that we should be recruiting to come develop in Skokie if they're willing to put up 30% affordable. And I really look forward to hearing more about the land trust, because I think that would be a great thing. There's a classmate of my daughter who's actually moving out of Skokie. Her mother is a longtime Skokie resident, grew up here. They're leaving Skokie because they can't afford to buy a house here. So, thank you.
I might point out, just on the LaSalle Street, there are 5 projects. According to the Tribune 2 weeks ago yesterday, not one of them is moving forward. And according to the Tribune, it's a lengthy article. It's exactly for the reasons that Johanna outlines in her memo.
Right, like I stated, I wanted to be clear that this was from May, so that's
Yes.
more recent information.
No, yes. Thank you.
I'm Shelley Pad. I'm speaking on behalf of Skokie Neighbors for Housing Justice, and we would like to thank the board and Mr. Lockerbie and Ms. Neiden for working so hard on this issue. The revised proposal continues to weaken and dismantle the protections for renters that Skokie Neighbors for Housing Justice sought to put into place. The current wording significantly reduces the numbers of required affordable units for most developments, does not guarantee the creation of affordable housing for Skokie residents who have low incomes, and makes it easy for developers to opt out of creating affordable units by paying a fee which could be used to upgrade existing units rather than create additional affordable units. The current proposed ordinance does not meet the goals that Skokie Neighbors for Housing Justice pursued when first approaching the village board to advocate for affordable housing. We do not want to see the village board pass and adopt a weak and ineffective ordinance that will not meaningfully increase the supply of affordable and accessible rental housing. As economic conditions decline, it's not only real estate developers who are hurting, but the Skokie residents and workers who are increasingly priced out of rental housing. Unfortunately, this ordinance would not actually help them in any significant way. Rather than simply hoping that this flawed ordinance would be amended at some unknown point in the future, Skokie Neighbors for Housing Justice recommends that the village board vote no on this ordinance and instead introduce a new comprehensive ordinance in the future that will incorporate the findings of the Housing Subcommittee and of the needs study of Skokie renters that the board has previously discussed. And we hope that that ordinance will be one that will actually provide meaningful support for Skokie residents who do not earn enough to pay market rate rents, including our service sector workers, our refugee and immigrant families, and other people who cannot afford 60% of the area median income. Thank you.
Hi, Sid Stein. The information I'm seeing is that Skokie has the highest rate, nearly 20% affordable housing available on the North Shore. So that, you know, we're at the highest level on the North Shore in terms of having affordable housing. We don't need to increase this nor impose a mandate. There are no free lunches. In economics, it is always unlimited wants with limited resources. We need to have well-planned housing and fiscal policies. Wanting to help people is always noble, but it has got to fit in with the facts on the ground and be realistic. To be honest, the mess we see Chicago in with our broken national immigration policy and the unrealistic assertion by Mayor Brandon Johnson of Chicago to taking all refugees in the end results in long-term Chicago residents leaving the city and many times Illinois altogether. So I would encourage nothing new. The old 5 Ps principle needs to be at work. Proper planning prevents poor performance. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That would be smart.
Hello, my name is Josh Graber. I'm a resident of Skokie. I'm here tonight. I'm here tonight to make sure all voices are heard on this issue and to let you know my personal position on this proposal. There will likely be tax implications. The cost of subsidizing affordable housing may lead to higher property taxes for all other taxpayers. I urge you to vote no on the ordinance in its current written form. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is David Yanku. I'm a Skokie resident as well. The last meeting I was at, we talked a lot about unintended consequences. Tonight we talked about crystal balls, sort of the same theme I hear. None of you have them. None of us have them. That's why the proposals are bouncing around so much, 10%, 7%, much to Trustee Johnson's chagrin. By voting on anything at all in this economy, you're all saying, I have a crystal ball. You don't. We don't. Mayor talked about how concrete costs, I think it was concrete costs, have increased by 25%. What about next year if it's 30%, 35%? We don't know. Wait for the economy to stabilize. Wait till builders want to build, want to invest in this community, and then put your policies in place. Don't do it at a time when builders are scared. Consider the possibility that the builders you've talked to are just being polite and really don't want to build here for other reasons other than that they just like Colorado or Texas. Maybe those places are friendlier to business. They are friendlier to business. Consider that. Joanna talked about how we're relevant. We're not relevant. Anybody who watches the news knows that Chicago is not a place business is groveling at to come into. That's not news to anybody. Don't make it harder, please. Thank you.
Good evening, Board and Mayor. I have a little bit of a different issue.
Your name, please.
I'm sorry, Ozzy Lipsix.
Thank you.
I have a little bit of a different issue with how the process, more than the substance of what had happened. Under the Skokie ordinances 2-44, they're the rules of order, that the current edition of the Roberts Rules of Order shall govern the proceedings of the Board and Trustees. Unless they're in conflict with, there are 35 different rules that are in there, that if they conflict, then the Skokie ordinance would win out over that. Robert's Rules of Order 17:8 states that a question that has been laid on the table remains there and can be taken from the table during the same session, or if the next regular business session will be held before a quarterly time interval has elapsed, also until the end of the next regular session. And this is where it emphasized, if it has not been taken from the table within these time limits, the question dies, although it can be reintroduced later as a new question. I believe on September 25th, this was voted on to be tabled. It was not taken off the table on that or the subsequent session. I am not a parliamentarian, but I do know how to read, so I don't know if how that interacts, and if this may be in the future, if somebody doesn't like what had happened, that this may be a collateral attack, but that's just something that the board should be.
The motion was to table the ordinance, and the pertinent phrase is for further review, meaning that it would go back, be taken up by staff. And then, once the staff has taken a look at it, consulted with members of the board, then it could bring it back. But the important phrase there is for further review. If the motion was simply to table the item, you would be absolutely correct. But the motion was phrased in a way for further review so that the staff could bring it back when they felt that they were ready to present it to the board.
Great. Just a quick follow-up to that. Is that the motion, the way that it was phrased from whoever made the motion? Or is it the phraseology that the minutes proposed in the next session? I'm sorry, because sometimes the actual motion is not necessarily the motion that is recorded in the minutes. So which one of those?
This is the motion that is in the minute as approved by the village board.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Matt Jarvis, Skokie resident. Sorry, I don't have prepared remarks today. But I agree with you, Mayor. I think an inclusionary ordinance is very important to Skokie. We do have a fantastic group of affordable housing here in Skokie, but as somebody who dabbles in economics, it's only going to dwindle. We don't have any vacant land left to build upon. So, and with pushback from residents on larger projects, we're not going to see some substantial inflow of new units. That being said, the vision should be long-term. I feel like there's a lot of discussion based around what's currently happening in the economy, and frankly, it's reactionary, and we're looking for a long-term vision for Skokie. We're not looking for something that only needs to be taken into account for the downturn that we're currently seeing and the current interest rates that we're seeing. That being said, I would wholeheartedly oppose this inclusionary measure because I feel like it's not doing enough to stabilize Skokie's affordable housing. And I also don't think that there's going to be any incentive to any of the board once developers start sniffing around again to increase the requirements, potentially scaring off developers at that point. I just don't see any change on this in the future, or the will to change it in the future, when the investment dollars will start eventually rolling back in. We have a wonderful community here. If we build it, they will come. We have all of the attractions of a place that people want to move to, and thus builders want to build in. So I would hope for a dismissal of this ordinance. Thank you.
Well, Matt, I'm going to push back. I'm going to do it in a friendly way.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad you smiled, because I do mean this in a friendly way. We do have a couple parcels, as a matter of fact, and we have had two or three developers come in with plans and walk away. Substantial. These were not small projects, they were substantial projects, and would receive potentially tax increment financing. I've listened to what they have had to say, and they weren't kidding. They said, we love the village of Skokie. You've got everything you could want. Great citizens, good economy, good public transportation, but the costs simply are too much, and I do not want to get caught in inclusionary zoning. And bingo. And if one walked away, you would say, fine, that's going to happen. But when you get two or three that do it, that gets your attention. And when you say, if we pass this ordinance, there's no incentive to amend it in the future. That also means there's no incentive to create a whole new ordinance. We would, if we vote no on this tonight, then that means there is no inclusionary zoning in the village of Skokie. And if at some point, a year from now, 2 years from now, the board says, well, maybe we should do it, economy's restored, we can do it, then what happens? You have to go all the way back to the very beginning. Somebody told me, I don't know if this is accurate, so do not quote me on this, but I'm told that one of our neighboring communities who has inclusionary zoning is going to be taking up a discussion of amending its ordinance to change some of the percentages, et cetera. They can do that simply by having a discussion, a vote on it. They don't have to go back and write a whole new ordinance. And so what I'm saying is, with all due respect, Matt, I think the easiest and the best road for the future of the village is pass the ordinance, let's see what happens, and then, if necessary, we can amend the ordinance. None of us are going anywhere. You're all going to be around. And you will come back and you will tell us, amend the ordinance. You said you could do it, do it. And all I'm doing is speaking from a little bit of experience.
I appreciate your comments, Mayor. I'd just like to say that from a mathematical standpoint, the more, if we kept it at 5 or 7% or whatever it's going to be, as we add more units, as a percentage of our properties in Skokie, our affordability rate will actually go down. Because you add 500 units, only 5% of them or 10% of them are affordable. It's getting further away from that 20% we currently have. So if we're even trying to achieve what we currently have, we need more. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Appreciate it.
Everyone. My name is Jason Amrani. Up here you can see a map. This was pulled from Northbrook, Illinois' website. This shows the affordable rate within our neighboring communities. You can see that Skokie is at 19.9%, and our neighbors with Gulf at 2.8, Glenview at 7.3, Wilmette at 4.5, Kenilworth at 2.2, Winnetka at 2.7, Northfield at 3.2, and I can go on and on. I would love to be able to support an inclusionary zoning ordinance. As Johanna so eloquently spoke about this evening, the timing is not right. We have multiple whammies. We have Cook County taxes. We have construction costs, as the mayor has addressed. We have interest rates where banks are not even wanting to lend with the uncertainty. And now, we're contemplating another hurdle, which is to address an affordability rate when we're already the leader on the North Shore. If we really want to become the capital of affordable housing on the North Shore, as we are looking to be, if you move forward with this ordinance, then let's take it to a vote. We can bring wards to a vote. Let the residents vote. Trustee Sutker and I have spoken, and she has said that when she hears from one resident, it's as if she hears from 200 residents. I misquoted you, I apologize. But something to that effect.
You did, but that's
okay. Well, then would you like to clarify it?
I think I said when I hear from one, I think of it as 100 residents.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
And so the last time we had a meeting, this room was packed with hundreds of people who were against this ordinance. And now tonight, once again, you have many residents who are against this ordinance. Why vote on anything at this time with this uncertainty? Mayor, trustees, you received a letter today from real estate developers and professionals, I being one of them, with probably the least amount of experience on that entire group. Not one of them support an affordable housing mandate. Not one of them. They are the professionals. We should listen to professionals. We should listen to Johanna and what her words mean. I don't know what we're doing here. We want inclusionary housing zoning ordinance, but it's not the right time. And what you're doing is only gonna cripple development. That has been very clear. So I would encourage you to table this for when the time is right. And if you so choose to pass this, then I would ask that certain things be met, where there be a fee in lieu, no matter how large the development. I would ask that there be a tiered system as a fee in lieu system. I suggest that it be a 3% and 5% affordability rate depending on the size. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. No. This is a public policy forum, not a sporting event. This is not the Detroit Lions. Sorry about that.
The Bears, they never.
Shouldn't have brought that one up. That was not very smart. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Emi Yamauchi, and I'm a resident of Skokie. I did listen to everything that was said tonight. In particular, I listened to what Johanna had to say. Her definition of inclusionary housing was that it be on-site, integrated amidst the construction that would be going on. So I'd like to make the following comments about the housing ordinance, which I noticed tonight is being referred to as an inclusionary zoning ordinance, which would be also an improvement because it would put it back into a zoning area with the Plan Commission. I am deeply disappointed that after 5+ months of discussions, revisions, tweaks, this draft has actually regressed. Contrary to what the previous gentleman said, as far as fee in lieu goes, I've heard plenty of talk about how much concrete has gone up, how much building materials, what real estate people think. I haven't heard anybody talk about how much the cost of food, clothing, utilities has gone up, all of these for the residents of Skokie. The fee in lieu for on-site affordable housing without the developer giving any compelling reason for applying for fee in lieu, without there being any tiered system with a 1-bedroom affordable housing unit being equal to a 3-bedroom affordable housing unit for the same $150,000, does not seem fair or logical. It also will force, at some point, any new affordable housing to be concentrated in one area. And the board will de facto be creating segregation by low income or economic class. Having the 7% tier for non-TIF receiving projects, that I do not understand from the position of TIF is a privilege, not a right. So why does someone get rewarded for not even applying or meriting a TIF by having their percentage reduced to 7%? Again, that does not seem fair or logical. As for the renovation grant program, especially having that without a viable community land trust at this point. Again, there is no criteria listed for the applicants. There's nothing that says they have to provide any reasons for why they were not able to maintain their private investment property. Which leads to my next question. Why should my taxpayers' money be going to subsidize somebody else's private property investment that they unfortunately, for whatever reason, have neglected and not been able to maintain? There is nothing in the ordinance that says that an applicant has to have no code violations, no tax delinquencies, no unpaid traffic tickets. So to me, it seems to reward deadbeat landlords and use public monies to subsidize their private investments. Worst of all, it does not increase the supply of affordable housing in any way. So yes, I think this current version of the draft is deficient and weaker than it was before. It does not increase the supply of affordable housing. It places
Your three-
developers.
Ma'am,
Okay.
your 3 minutes are up.
I have,
Nobody has gone
I
over
have one
3
more
minutes.
paragraph. It places developers' profits over human needs and the quality of life. It rewards delinquent landlords and bails them out. It also officially sanctions segregation and discrimination by income and economic class by funding these renovations of existing private investments and creating islands of affordable housing, which will be all that will be left to be built. So thank you for your indulgence. I also want to say to the trustee who originally initiated this with an impassioned speech and a call to action, and which put hope and expectations in people's hearts, by not speaking out publicly in support of your own initiative, you've lost my confidence.
Hello, my name is Artur Friedberg. I'm a Skokie resident for almost 15 years. This is a wonderful, diverse, and warm community, and I'm grateful to live here, and thank you all for being here. So over the last 15 years, I've seen services scale down. I've seen roads get worse, and costs generally going up. I would ask that the board members remember that good intentions have unintended consequences. And proponents are talking about what we can do for somebody else. The somebody else is people who are not here yet, but there are people who are here today. And what I would like to know is, you know, considering that my real estate taxes went up 50% this last cycle, and they have been going up since I've been here, you know, who will pay for that? Who will pay for all these good intentions? Who will pay for more schools? Who will pay for more road usage? Please don't forget about the rest of us that are here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Jared Rubenstein, Skokie resident. As I understand it, this trustee board's job is to represent the interests of the community. And I think you're representing the interests of the current community. And as we've talked about tonight, costs are going up. And you're focused on the affordability of housing, of living in Skokie for future residents, not current residents. And what you've heard from almost everyone who's come up here, both the people who want the inclusionary zoning and not, is either it hasn't gone far enough so they're not pleased, or they don't want it. And so I haven't counted everyone who's come up here, but almost everyone who's come up here has said they are displeased with it. And so what I would suggest is someone who came up before said, put it up to a vote. Let the residents vote on it. You've heard from residents who are passionate enough to be here, who have roundly said they don't support what's in front of them. Put it up to a vote for the residents. Let us reflect, because you seem to be pushing something that everyone who is here is not supporting. Either it's not going far enough, or it's not something they support. Me personally, I wouldn't support it. What we saw up here earlier on the map is what this village has in place is already making us a leader. So adding more to it is not gonna change the fact that what we are doing right now, without imposing restrictions, is making Skokie the leader on the North Shore. Let what has worked continue to work without placing additional restrictions that could lead to negative unintended consequences.
Thank you. Members of the board, final comments. Trustee Sucker, do you have any final comments? Trustee Robinson?
No.
Trustee Kuhn? Okay. Trustee Johnson, Pure Slovan, Klein.
I got something.
Okay.
As the last gentleman said, I believe his name was Rubenstein, he stated a fact. There ain't nobody in here who wants this right now. So for us to vote on it, I think would not be in anybody's best interest. And, I don't know what the correct legal verbiage is, but I say we table this, and then we decide, do we wanna send it to referendum? We wanna modify it, or do we wanna vote on it? But nobody wants this, including me. So I think I'd
Then
like
vote
to
now.
table it. What?
Go to vote.
And vote now.
Oh, that's a
That's the
given.
point.
But I'm saying, but why are we forcing a vote?
Well, first of all,
Motion's on the floor.
we've discussed this. When did you make your proposal?
Before
A
the end
year
of the-
ago?
Yes.
It's been at least a year that we've been discussing it.
And we've been changing,
And as,
and we're learning.
and as, yes, we are. And that is why we are where we are. And we have an ordinance before us. And I think the positive part of this ordinance is that it establishes that the village agrees to the principle of inclusionary zoning. And it does set some modest standards that I think are going to be good for us in the long run. This is not the kind of thing, how are you gonna put this on the ballot?
That I don't know.
I mean,
That's why Michael gets paid.
no. Michael's a very smart guy.
That I
He's
know.
not that smart. None of us are. And I think we have something before us. We can vote for it, or you can vote against it. But I think the time comes. We're elected officials, and our job is to take up these kinds of issues. And it's not comfortable, but it's something that we do need to do. Yes, sir.
Just a point of question, is a motion to table debatable? Because I heard a motion to table.
There is no motion to.
No, I asked the question.
Oh, you did.
He just asked the question.
I asked the question, can I?
Maybe motion.
And a motion to table is not debatable. Yes, sir.
I apologize. With this discussion, will you allow me to have a short?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Sure.
Robert Klein, Skokie resident, very, very uninformed of the entire proposed act. If I understood correctly, the intention of the original, posture for the board was on behalf of individuals who might need assistance living in this community, creating affordable housing for those people who may be challenged, especially those people who are providing vital services or providing vital diversity for our community. And it seems that the changes that have taken place since that original intent has moved away from the interest of those community members that should be a part of our diverse community, and have moved to the interest of developers' profits. Mr. Mayor, I can see, well, all right, I can see that you disagree with that position.
I do.
What I'm asking you to consider is that there are many things that this community does that are important. But it seems like we have taken something that was intended to help those individuals who are not able to afford to be a part of this community, who will be of value in this community's diversity, and put that aside and used this now as a means of how do we attract developers and make it profitable for them. I think we can do both, but I think to approve this in the way that it is ignoring its original intent. And I hope that you will not approve it in its state, because I believe Skokie can do better.
No, Claire.
I vehemently disagree with the gentleman. This is not about profits. This is about encouraging development in the village, period. And you can't have affordable housing if you don't have developers. There's no way around it. And if we back away from this, then there will be no requirement whatsoever for a developer who wants to come in and build multifamily housing. And to my way of thinking, and I'm a convert, I admit that, it's time that we at least establish and agree with the principle of inclusionary zoning, so that we do set a floor for multifamily housing when it is developed, and make sure that we have at least a minimum number of units of affordability in those houses. And it's important for developers to know that up front. And when the discussion veers toward talking about developers, costs, et cetera, it's not because we as a board are looking toward increasing the profits of developers. It's we're looking to try and find a way to make sure that we can try and maintain, I think it was 19.7%. That is substantial. How do we try to ensure? I think our goal should be to try and be somewhere in the 20 to 25% area. You don't do that if you don't establish standards in today's economy. And I think this is a step in that direction. It's not the end all and the be all, and there will be further discussion and debate on doing this. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Rachel Farber. I'm a resident of Skokie. I'm definitely not as informed as I could be on this issue, but I do want to say that I think everybody, for different reasons here, has said to vote no on this because of whatever reasons they choose. And with all due respect, Mayor, you're the only person I'm hearing in the room that wants this to go ahead in its current form. And as an elected official representing the community, I don't see any other vote besides no, based on what everybody here is saying for different reasons. Thank you.
Sure. Yes, sir.
Thank you, everyone. Ronnie Cohen, a Skokie resident. I just wanted to comment on recent exchange between Trustee Klein and Mayor Van and the mayor, whereas when Trustee Klein said he wasn't sure why the board would vote on it tonight, and Mayor, you responded to show everyone the principle that the village of Skokie is invested in an inclusionary housing ordinance. And I think that kind of gives the game away, where if you, sort of by your own admission, is saying that this is just for optics and just to send a message, I think it's sort of a dangerous game to be playing, just to be sending the message that Skokie has a principle of inclusionary housing. Thank you.
This is not for optics. Take my word for it. This is not for optics.
Mayor, I'd just like to address one thing, if I can, that you just mentioned, that you believe that it would be easier for developers to know what they have coming in when they want to do a development in Skokie. But please correct me if I'm wrong, Johanna works with developers all the time, and we do not currently have a mandate. And developers come to Johanna and her department get to speak to developers and say, this is what we're looking for. And please correct me if I'm wrong, the department says to developers what you're looking for. Is that a fair statement? Without a mandate in place, does the department currently express its desire for affordable units when a new development is being made? Yes or no?
There is no yes or no answer to that.
It is, sir.
No, okay. Jason?
When a
Okay.
developer comes into the village of Skokie, Johanna has said this herself from this very podium. When a developer comes to Skokie, does the village make the developer aware that it wishes to have an affordable unit component to its development? It's a yes or no question.
Citizen comments, in all due respect, really are for you to make a comment and not to be into question staff. I'm sure an answer can be given.
But we've addressed this from this very podium. We've addressed this issue that the village lets developers know what its intention is. So why not let that continue?
Okay, that's fine. Are there any other comments or questions?
Last comment from me, Mayor,
Okay.
thank you. Going back to what you said, a principle of inclusionary housing. From the beginning, when we created this ordinance, I did mention the 3 objectives that I agreed upon for the principle of inclusionary housing. And I still stand with that in terms of the mission. It is what we have created at this point that I don't agree with.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a comment after the vote.
After the vote? Okay. Call the roll.
Wait, I had made a request to vote just in case on the period of affordability. I asked for that.
You want to make a motion?
I make a motion that the period of affordability be 20 years and not 40. That's what I asked for. If we could do that.
Is a motion has been proposed? I don't see a
What's
second.
Second.
Thank you.
Second.
That's just
We have
on
a
the
second.
40 years.
That's all, that's the one issue.
Just wanted to reiterate it.
To go into the 20.
Okay. Call the roll.
Trustee Sutker,
No.
Trustee Robinson,
This is going from 40 to 20?
Correct.
No.
Trustee Kuhn,
No.
Trustee Johnson,
Nay.
Trustee Pure Slovin,
Aye.
Trustee Klein,
Aye.
Mayor Van Dusen.
Nay. The motion fails.
Well, that went well.
Final passage.
Final, okay. Trustee Sutker,
What are we voting on?
On the ordinance.
Thank you.
current.
I want to start somewhere with inclusionary housing for Skokie. I consider that different than the affordable housing. Inclusionary housing is having it incorporated into a new development. So I'm voting aye.
Trustee Robinson,
I think the community deserves inclusionary housing. But I don't think we're there yet, so I vote no.
Trustee Kuhn,
Given the concerns and comments from tonight's meeting, I'm voting no.
Trustee Johnson,
No, I'm really thrown off because I was, y'all, I think we need to get something on the books. I think this ordinance can and should be far better than it is. I think we've deviated far too much from the draft parameters. That being said, a weak ordinance is better than no ordinance. My vote is aye.
Trustee Pure Slovin,
Nay.
Trustee Klein,
No.
Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye.
Motion's defeated.
So the motion loses 4-3.
Correct.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is unfinished business. Trustee Johnson.
Sure. Mayor, you submitted a memo at the beginning of the meeting to the trustees. I haven't really had a time to look at it thoroughly, so I'm just gonna kind of proceed. I had requested a draft ordinance to update our appointment process for village attorneys, and this is something that we decided on 6 months ago, but we haven't made progress on it. And so before I make any comments, I'll just ask, what has prevented there from being a draft ordinance on our agenda tonight?
Well, couple things. First, I have talked with every trustee, and nobody has told me what they want to do. I've been told virtually unanimously that they don't want to make any change. And that if there is going to be a change made, they would want to do it when there's a vacancy in the position. I don't know what an ordinance would say, but I have done some research. And under Illinois state law, the mayor is to make a recommendation to the village board. And the statute is very unequivocal. And it says that the mayor is to make a recommendation to the village council, and that the board then, by advice and consent, appoints the corporation council. That is what we have been doing, and it's been done according to state statute. So I am mystified to know what change it is that, that you want to make.
Mayor.
I don't, if you can give me language for a statute, I would be glad to take a look at it.
I'll say,
But nobody on the board, everybody on the board tells me they don't want to make a change. I've talked to every member of the board.
Mayor, I'm sometimes amazed how our public business does not happen in public. But I will just say,
Well, you say you want a statute, you want a model ordinance, and I want to know, what do we put in the ordinance? And I've talked to members of the board, that's part of my job.
I'm glad you asked this of what should be in this ordinance, because when we talked about this 6 months ago, May 15th, there were a number of very strong points of agreement across the whole board. I've printed off for all of you, this is a copy of the Chicago Tribune article about us moving forward with an ordinance. And I'm gonna pass it down because it makes the conversation that we had very clear. There were 3 points, I think, of very clear agreement from everyone on the board. We all agreed that we wanted our legal department to remain in-house. We also all agreed that the appointment process for corporation council should be far more inclusive and explicitly include the trustees in the process. We also all agreed that our appointment process should be limited to just the corporation council position and not include the assistant corporation council positions. There was no disagreement on any of those points, specifically about making our process more inclusive and more limited. Those agreements, I think, are enough to move forward. The only point of disagreement was to what degree this appointment process should be explicitly nonpartisan. And I think that's the point that's really kind of caught us up. During that meeting, Trustee Kuhn suggested adding language to clarify that the corporation council is hired regardless of their political affiliation. I strongly agree. Trustee Sutker suggested a code of ethics for our corporation council, very similar to the code of ethics that we expect from our village manager. I very much agreed.
And there is a code of ethics.
I think
there is.
Oh, I think we're. Do you want?
I wanted to clarify that.
sure, absolutely.
The code of ethics for lawyers is a code of ethics for lawyers. That's what I was referring to, just like a code of ethics for the manager's office. He has a code of,
Got it.
so I want to clarify that.
I appreciate that. Well, Mayor, in May, you said that we would move forward with an ordinance to revise this process. It's now 6 months later. I don't really understand why. Oh, I have another handout. I just wanted to remind everyone, we're talking about 2 or 3 sentences in our village code. We're talking about a very small section of our village code that is not particularly difficult to update.
Mayor, may I make a comment?
Sure, let me just point out, the article also says, Van Duzen said trustees have historically played a role in the attorney appointment process, saying trustees met with candidates in the past. When current corporation counsel Michael Loja was appointed, Van Duzen said the decision was made in part due to the trustees' wishes. So it is not as though state law is very clear. It is as a matter of fact, if we want to be in conformity with state law, the mayor should be recommending the village manager for advice and consent. The state law is very clear on that. We haven't done it that way. But whenever the Corporation Council's job has come open, twice since I've been mayor, once when Pat Hanley was appointed. Pat met with, he talked with all the trustees. If not every trustee.
I appreciate that some stuff happens in practice that's maybe a little better than what's literally
Well,
written in the
it's
code.
state, but you have to be in conformity with state law.
Something that's come up multiple times in the past 13 months when we've looked at this is our manager's office prepared a comparative diagram showing how this process is very different in a lot of Illinois municipalities. So we've already been presented with evidence that there are many communities that do it differently than we do. So this suggestion that we can't actually change this, I think is false.
What that chart showed was that approximately half of the municipalities chose their corporation council to be outside. The other municipalities, the other 50%, do it the way we do it. The advice and consent by the village board.
I understand.
I mean, I've got the law right here if you want me to read it to you.
I'll speak more directly to the trustees. Trustees, on May 15th, we decided to move forward with an ordinance. Is there any member of this board that would like to proceed? I think that's really a shame. All right, then I'll leave it there. I'm disappointed. Oh, sorry. I have another unfinished business item. The drive-through ordinance. At our last meeting, we were talking about voting procedures earlier. At our last meeting, we voted to table an ordinance to this meeting, but it is not on our agenda. On September 18th, we voted 5-2 to approve the first reading of this ordinance, which is to mitigate some of the negative impacts of drive-through facilities. When is this going to be returning?
I'm hoping, and I have not been part of the discussion, so Micah, you and Johanna and John might know, when they have been able to come up with some language. Trustee Kuhn has participated in the discussion, I understand. And that was, I think, Trustee Kuhn, it was your motion to table, am I correct?
Correct.
So as soon as Trustee Kuhn is ready, it'll come back to the board.
The motion was very specific that it would come back at this meeting.
Yes. And,
Excuse me, can I interrupt?
yeah,
Just as a point of education, Trustee Kuhn and myself met with about 5 members of the staff because we had concerns with it. Then, at another time, I met with Trustee Slovin, who had concerns with it. Then Trustee Kuhn met with Trustee Robinson. He had some concerns with it. So we asked staff to take it back, and to revisit things that 4 of us had a problem with. Now, the rest of us, we do not wait to come to a meeting and do our business. We talk, we interact, okay? Now, we've invited you to do that, but you seem to be reluctant to do that with us. So, please don't be surprised when things don't go straight. We are in the political business. Things change, great. In June, we said something, and then we take input. We got input from over 300 residents that they didn't want something. We take that into consideration, we change things. We try to accommodate all the people. You can't just come here and say, this was said, and it's the Bible. This Bible changes.
I'm sorry, we voted on this at our last meeting. This is not me saying this. I don't know if you remember, I was actually one of the trustees who voted against this motion at our last meeting, and here I am trying to make sure that that vote is respected.
you and I both.
Yeah. So this isn't, just because some trustees decided behind the scenes that they didn't want to move.
It's not behind the scenes.
We did
It's,
it very legally.
it's
I
like,
didn't have enough information that I felt comfortable that I could vote on at the last board meeting. So that was the reason why I did not take the vote.
All right.
I would not have felt comfortable moving forward with that vote. I needed more time. I met with staff. I got more information. And at the end of the discussion, I didn't feel it was something that I would feel comfortable moving forward with. And given where some of the other trustees are at, I don't think we have the votes to move forward with this.
I totally respect that there may not be the votes to move forward. I think what I am saying is there is a process here that should be respected, and if members of this board have changed their minds and no longer wish to support this ordinance, we should vote on it, and the board can vote it down. I really think that we shouldn't, just because some it's totally fine for people to change their minds on something. So, but just because some folks have changed their mind doesn't mean that we should just scrap this ordinance completely.
They want a clarification also on some points.
I'd like to make a little point of clarification as well. There's this consistent story being told that Mr. Johnson has not tried to speak to all of you. I FOIA'd his emails to all of you. He has consistently tried to speak to all of you. You did not respond. So let's get the story straight here. You guys are excluding him from the conversation. And the conversations that are happening behind closed doors should be happening in public because you're talking about public business. So yes, you can have some conversations behind closed doors, but you're leaving out a trustee consistently. So let's get the story straight. Let's stop creating stories that he doesn't reach out to you. Not true, he has multiple times. Let's be honest.
okay. Next item on the agenda, public comments.
If I may, I'd like to offer some public comments.
Okay, we've got a couple people.
Public comments are 3 minutes, correct?
Wait.
Yeah, I'm Shelley Pat. I just want to thank the board again for addressing the affordable housing issue, which obviously is much more complicated and with many opinions on it. I also, when I was thanking everyone earlier, because I was very nervous about my 3 minutes and reading off of a statement, I neglected to thank Mr. Lorge and want to especially extend a lot of thanks to you and your staff, because I know it must be very complicated to have to take all of these ideas and put them into legalese and then have to redo it and redo it and redo it. And so, and I also remember when Trustee Robinson first brought up that the board should address this, Mr. Lorge, you saying that this is a moral imperative. And this is what I heard echoed from everyone here, that recognizing that affordable housing and the inclusionary subset of it that Trustee Sutker said is very important. And I really hope that whoever of the 30 or 40 people who are in the room here tonight can have just some time thinking about just some empathy for, even if it is just a small percentage of our neighbors living in Skokie who are struggling with rent, for people who have physical disabilities who cannot afford to live in these brand new buildings that are the only handicapped accessible buildings in Skokie, and for the people living in our community, the people coming to our community, and the people working here who are not as privileged as many of us to own our own homes. And that I certainly hope wherever this is going, that Skokie is going to move forward to figuring out a way to, with the moral imperative and the empathy, to meet the housing needs of Skokie, all Skokie residents, and of all Skokie workers.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll pass it on to my staff. And our door is always open, as it has been through this process, for anyone with suggestions or comments on it. I really do appreciate it. It is important to me. Thank you.
Matt Jarvis again. Actually, not here to attack the board at all this time around. I think you guys have done a marvelous job today, again, incorporating feedback. Actually, it's about the drive-through ordinance. that, I think some of the confusion or maybe frustration lies in what the great Donald Rumsfeld said. There's, you know what you don't know, and then you don't know what you don't know. And I think the confusion is we didn't know what the trustees didn't know that they didn't know. So when it was tabled, I don't think there were any specific objectives or data gathering that was announced that said, hey, this is what we need to move forward. It was just kind of like, we don't know enough. So I wanted to bring up some points about this ordinance that I thought would be maybe guiding. The only real pros I find about drive-throughs are it enables companies to have faster and higher volume transactions, and there's a great convenience for drivers. Trustee Klein raised that by introducing this ordinance, we would appear to be not pro-business, but I think it really comes down to what kind of businesses we're not pro about. You listed off a bunch of multinational conglomerates, and I don't really feel like they represent our interests in Skokie necessarily. They are somebody to take into account and are utilized by our residents, but they aren't anything that distinguishes Skokie or makes us unique or even necessarily a better place to live. The cons are many of drive-throughs in general. They create commerce islands. You know, people don't get out of their cars. They're not going to go to another business to perhaps buy anything additionally. I would actually argue that the transaction amount is probably lower when people don't get out of their cars because they're not viewing other goods or services that they could be purchasing, and creates walking hazards. You already mentioned that there's going to be idling controls on cars, so hopefully emissions get reduced. But in the meantime, you know, for another 20, 30 years, there's going to be a bunch of cars that don't meet that criteria. And often places that have drive-throughs don't have synonymous hours for walk-up customers. So it's almost like, you know, you have to have a car in order to utilize these companies at certain hours of the day or night because, you know, I have actually been quoted from the drive-through that I've walked up to saying this is a liability issue. They don't want me hit in their drive-through. It would be really nice if I could patronize these businesses during all of their business hours as a pedestrian. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening and an early happy Thanksgiving. I'm aware that the mayor and the majority of the trustees have hired a very expensive outside counsel to bring a motion to dismiss Trustee Johnson's ethics complaint and unbelievably to sanction and fine him $5,000. You've authorized up to $24,000 in taxpayer funds to bring this action against him. I have several questions. Isn't such retaliatory interference expressly prohibited by the Village Ethics Code of Ordinance, quoting the pertinent language, no person that is the subject of an ethical complaint, whether officer or employee, shall participate, my emphasis, in any way whatsoever in the review, investigation, again my emphasis, recommendations or decision in regards to the ethical complaint. The mayor and trustees are indeed the very subject of Trustee Johnson's ethics complaint. Hiring a lawyer to influence the normal ethics commission process to quash Johnson's complaint with sanctions and fines certainly appears to be in stunning defiance of that ordinance. What am I missing? I believe that the action against Johnson is completely inappropriate, that the ethics commission's process should have been allowed to flow as it normally would, and I think what you're doing is an abuse of the privilege of office. Thank you.
Well, the village has an indemnification ordinance, which is standard operating procedure for any business, not-for-profit, any corporation. And when the character of the village, of members of the village board specifically, is called into question, we certainly have every single right to defend ourselves. And that includes legal representation. And it complies completely with the village's ordinance we have a standing indemnification policy of village employees. And the ordinance specifically mentions elected officials. So the Ethics Commission will take up the motion to dismiss, and that is what the job of the Ethics Commission is.
So
And we
Mayor,
have a right to defend ourselves.
You're all elected officials, so therefore the claim of defamation
This
doesn't
isn't
apply.
nobody said defamation. The word defamation is
No,
not
you're
used.
saying your character is being assailed.
It-
I think actually trustee Johnson is speaking to your behavior in office, and that's a completely appropriate question for a trustee to ask. And I would again cite
It's
the
one
Code
thi-
of Ethics, Mayor, with respect, that says that y'all shouldn't be interfering. You should have absolutely nothing to do with the decision-making process of the Ethics Commission.
We have every right to defend ourselves.
So are you
Just that-
saying that that ordinance
just-
doesn't apply, Mayor?
What I'm saying is we have a right to defend ourselves.
Are you saying that that ordinance, and I can cite the.
I know, I heard it.
Well, how does it
I'm
not
telling
apply,
you
sir?
that we have a right before the Ethics Commission, just like anybody else who is accused of something, to defend themselves.
With respect, it seems to me the language of the ordinance is very clear, specific, and applicable. Thank you.
You're welcome.
David Yanku, resident of Skokie. I just want to speak up in support of the board in their hiring of an attorney, the remaining board members, and seeking sanctions against trustee Johnson. I would ask that you amend that and ask for more sanctions, serve multiple purposes, not just to cover the attorney's fees, but to actually punish for this type of behavior. My understanding is this is now the fourth complaint, the first three unsubstantiated. Should have been sanctions in the first three. Maybe I misunderstood. It also encouraged the board to take a look at, and I understand official immunity, but to take a look at potentially private civil lawsuits against trustee Johnson for malicious prosecution and abusive process.
Okay, if we're gonna play fair, let's play fair. If we're gonna talk about sanctions, let's talk about trustees who are posting Islamophobic, inhumane, social media comments. The same trustees that have been elected by the entire village of Skokie and who represent the entire village of Skokie. So let's talk about this one, where we're talking about Muslims and putting them in the same picture as Nazis. Let's talk about nobody said on 9/11, I support both sides. Let's talk about plenty of security and the animals being kept away from us, referring to the pro-Palestine event. Let's talk about, you complain about the horrors of ethnic cleansing, but yell from the river to the sea, which is literally ethnic cleansing. All the while not even knowing what river and what sea you're talking about. And today, the beauty of Shifa is a hospital like Auschwitz is a labor camp. I'm sorry. If we're gonna talk about sanctions, let's talk about sanctions. I've emailed you. I asked you to please take them down. I ask you this as a Jewish woman, as a mother, who also cares about our Muslim community and our Palestinian community. You said it was perfectly okay. I emailed all of you and said, please protect our Muslim and Palestinian communities. They're in danger as well. This was shortly after the 6-year-old boy was murdered, stabbed to death. Not one heartfelt moment of reaching out to your community. Instead, we have this garbage that's completely allowed and seems to be okay. When are we gonna start talking about being a community? When are we gonna talk about reaching out and healing? Instead of talking about who is right, who is wrong, how are we gonna do this? This is a nightmare. I'm a Jewish woman. I'm a refugee. I care about our Palestinian and Muslim community members. It is your job, those of you sitting on the dais there, to represent them as well. They need support. They're hurting too. They're losing family members as well. Stop this.
Good evening. My name is Dean Rauschberger. I live on Lotus Avenue. I appeared before the Planning Commission on October 19th, on October 19th, early this year. It was my understanding, and this is the first time I've been to this process, so I'm not fully informed, that there was going to be a consideration of the Planning Commission's report regarding the location at 9230 Lotus Avenue. That's what the Plan Commission report indicated. Council chambers, 7:30, November 20th. Is that being heard this evening, or has that been neglected?
There was no Plan Commission hearing this. There's no Plan Commission.
Because when I look at the agenda, it says Plan Commission, and the report that was issued says Plan Commission report, Council chambers, 7:30, November 20th. The community appeared before the Planning Commission on October 19th. Many members of the community appeared for the first time, and it was a disappointing process. So today, it was my understanding that there was going to be a secondary consideration.
Can we?
Excuse me?
Can you see the document?
Sure. And I was concerned about the process being transparent and open to the community, so. Mayor, I show you.
No, please.
Go back, please.
That's my document.
I'll give it back to you. I'm not taking it for any.
Okay.
Just
Why
let me
don't you
take a
return
look.
this so you can be heard over the microphone?
So there, on October 19th, the Planning Commission met, and they made a recommendation. There are some concerns regarding their recommendation that I'd like to be heard by the board.
Yeah. I have no, I'm gonna have to look into this. I have no idea why that says November 20th. Let me look
Well,
into
back
it.
there, before the hearing, I emailed and corresponded with you and others regarding the concerns about the recommendation. And I invited you to attend the hearing. Members of the community attended the hearing. And there's concerns about the adequacy of the investigation, its completeness. Chairman Lukey, if that's his, I believe is his name.
Paul Luke.
Paul Lukey, he essentially said it was a rubber stamp. He was basically, his hands were tied. While he gave the members in the community who showed up for the first time 3 minutes, he gave the applicant more than 20. When I asked why, he said because she is paying a fee, an application fee, as if us taxpayers are not stakeholders and don't have the opportunity to express ourselves. So there are concerns about, and issues to be raised, legitimate issues, and the community does not want to be marginalized, does not want to be discounted.
I understand. Let me look into this.
Give it.
Yeah.
I will share with you a couple of important concerns. Just
Well-
give me 3 minutes, that's all I asked for.
Well, you've had 3 minutes. Let me look into it.
I would like, would you give me 3 minutes? I've been here all evening. Can I have 3 minutes?
Yeah, but I don't know what you're talking about. That's the problem. If you would give me time to look into it, we can discuss it, and I will let you know when it's coming to the village board. So that, and we will all have a chance to get the report and read it.
Well, for the record,
and
because
digest
I am
it.
here, this is some of the concerns. When I met with the Community Development Department, I asked, what are the rules and regulations for CELA homes? It was, and they said they didn't know. They'd have to research it. I found that disappointing and a problem. How could they not know what the rules and regulations are? So I researched it myself. There are regulations on it. It's a state regulation, okay? At the hearing on October 19th, some people in the community raised an issue that there was a group home a block away. Nobody on the Planning Commission knew it. Mr. Reiser didn't know it. Mr. Acosta didn't know it. They weren't even aware of where the other integrated homes are. Now, there's a distance limitation whether you approve of the distance, 800 feet, should it be more or less? There was a lack of awareness, a lack of investigation. It really felt that even before the plan was approved, Orchard Village, who we support, not against their mission or their values. It was an issue really about their location, was already going full steam ahead with construction activities before approval. It raises red flags. And the two factors that came into play, which is real important, I'll wrap this up in 60 seconds, that the property must not appreciably alter the characteristics of the community. One of those important factors is density, an important consideration. It was dismissed by the commission, and the agency didn't even really look at it. The second was it cannot be isolated. A factual consideration is access to mass transit. I live on Lotus Avenue. It's one of the oldest streets in Skokie, okay? Lotus Avenue existed before Skokie. The mass transit is on Golf and Central. There's no sidewalk. It is isolated. It would be one of the most isolated sections. So for this population, it really is the wrong location. But these are just important considerations that were simply discounted and marginalized. It became a rubber stamp.
Understood.
It's disappointing that it was stated on the report and that was sent to me by the agency, your group, with the understanding that.
Let us look into it. If you would give Mrs. Wu, sir,
this is like.
you would give Ms. Wu your name and your phone number.
Absolutely. I'm concerned about the lack of involvement when you get citizens and taxpayers showing up for the first time, and the people felt dismissed.
Sir, can you go on around the other side? Thank you.
The mayor told me to go this way.
Oh, she just meant to talk to her.
I get you.
Ms. Yamaguchi?
Sorry, it's Yamauchi. I'm not related to the rich Yamaguchis.
Sorry, I apologize.
It's okay. I'm going to get down to something more mundane, but first I want to give a shout out to the lady who gave the passionate and compassionate statement about what's going on in the world today on social media. I want to return to the legal costs that the village is incurring. You are already fighting the Illinois Attorney General's non-binding resolution of an ethics complaint case. I FOIA'd the invoices. They're nearing $30,000. I just would like to know what major legal, constitutional, sovereignty issue is at stake here that merits spending taxpayers' money at that rate for something that is easily compliable with, and which was
We
issued
did
by.
comply, that's the point.
Okay, so why
We
are we,
did
why are
comply.
we still paying these bills?
Because the court case is still going on. It's in the briefing stage.
Okay, yes,
And
because
I
he's
don't-
asking for the full recordings.
And that is what the judge said, that he wanted to do briefing.
Right.
We didn't say that. We had a motion to dismiss because the village was in compliance. It was a question of a couple days. We complied. The village board took care of the matter. The judge said he wanted to proceed and he wanted briefing. We did the briefing. We're just waiting for the judge to read the briefs, and I don't know if I don't think he set a schedule for the next hearing.
Okay, so
Some of
moving on,
this is-
okay, that's,
some of this is
that's good.
beyond our control.
That is good to hear because it's our tax money.
Yes, it is.
Okay, secondly, about the issue raised by a previous gentleman speaker about whatever it is now you're trying to penalize Mr. Johnson for. Again, you know, I serve on a condo board. The main lesson we are taught by our in-house counsel or our condo attorney is that you don't sue each other because everybody loses in a case like that. And you are suing yourself.
We did,
So-
no, we did not.
You're-
We did not. We are defending ourselves. Trustee Johnson.
But he is not, is he suing you?
it's not a matter of a lawsuit, it's a matter of bringing a complaint before the Ethics Commission.
Right, but he's
Right.
not accusing you of a crime.
Yeah,
He is not litigating.
accusing us of a deep state conspiracy.
Sorry.
And
This
he-
is-
and-
Point of
listen
order,
to the
point of
next-
order.
That's what it is.
Point of order. Point of order.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Let her, stop it. Yes.
Okay, all I'm saying is that I don't see any need for taxpayers' money to be paying for legal fees when it is not a criminal case. On a condo board, just like you said, you've got directors and officers insurance. You've got D&O insurance that indemnifies you when you are carrying out official duties. And you are accused of some sort of crime, criminal negligence, whatever. This is not one of those cases. So again, I'm going back to my condo board experience. Do not make us pay for the two sides fighting each other. It is not fair to the taxpayer. Thank you.
Ilanka Ulrich, 3858 Harvard Terrace. I'm here because of the ethics complaint. You said the judge. Are you talking about the Chairman Minkus?
No.
So the ethics
There's a-
complaint?
There's an ethics complaint before the Village Ethics Commission. What I was also referring to, which was the $30,000, was the lawsuit before the circuit court.
Okay, so, I'm here as a citizen, not as an ex-trustee, not as an ex-zoning board commissioner. I'm here because an ethics complaint was brought. And to prove an ethics complaint, one, you need an independent chairman, independent arbiter to decide this. And repeatedly, it's been asked, what is the relationship? There's an email that says, hey, the legal department, Michael Lurge, said we don't have to do anything to another, the only other ethics person said, let's do this. So he gets appointed because he didn't think he had to do anything. If I was sitting up there and I told any of you, hey, I'm gonna be a trustee, I don't have to do anything, will you hire me, will you appoint me? It would be no. On the zoning board, if I knew that I would have, that seems like an unqualified person to begin with. Why would Chairman Minkus say, we don't have to do anything, let's take this position? And he will not answer the question of what his relationship is with the legal department and why he was appointed. That's just a simple question. You need an independent arbiter to avoid the appearance of impropriety. I'm not here as a friend of Johnson. I have friends on this board. I'm embarrassed because he won't answer the question, what is his relationship, why is he appointed? And consistently, I've been to a couple of those meetings, he will not answer that question. Number two, all you have to do is show that, I mean, there's an ethics complaint. It's a matter of right and wrong. Prove that you're wrong or right? That's the question. So, when I'm nervous because I care about some people up here, and I feel disempowered for the longest time because I feel that there's an appearance of impropriety going on with this board, and I'm embarrassed about it. If you guys are the respondents in his complaint, you cannot put sanctions on him because you're the respondent. You need to step aside and have somebody else decide that. It's just what's going on in the federal government right now. You can't be a party to the complaint and then say, 3 minutes, is that what you're giving me?
Yes.
Okay, well then I'll have somebody else finish it for me. But Lisa, or somebody step up, please, because you know what I want to say. I didn't prepare a speech tonight. I'm just kind of ashamed of the fact that you guys are the respondents. You're going to impose the sanctions. It's like being the defendant and saying,
We're not imposing sanctions.
well, you're asking for, you hired attorneys for that. Does James Johnson get attorneys as well?
It's in the village code.
is it?
Yes, it is.
So is it your job,
Yes, it is.
if you're behaving not in the duty of your office, if you're behaving unethically, is that part of your job? And is that what the taxpayer should pay for? Something that you're doing, perhaps unethically, perhaps not. It's not for you to decide. You're hiring attorneys to do this for you. It's kind of if I'm a citizen and I have a complaint ethically, do I have to hire attorneys? Do I have to expend my money for a municipal? I mean, it's ridiculous. He should get afforded the same opportunity. I'm not partisan to James Johnson. I can't believe a person can't bring an ethics complaint would have to hire an attorney. I told him what Lincoln said. If you don't hire an attorney, if you represent yourself, you're a fool for a client. And I think James Johnson's being a fool because he's going against big money against somebody who has nothing. And that's shameful.
Got to finish anyway.
Ozzy Left 6, again. It's really hot in here tonight. It's unfortunate that we got to this point. There's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot going on in this village. A lot of the people in my community were not feeling safe after October 7th. And we have Allison Slovin to thank for the communication to the Skokie Police, to the state police, to make sure that we felt that we were at least afforded the same opportunity that everybody else is. If this would have happened to any other country, what happened on October 7th? The world would not have been silent. And for us to second guess ourselves that we can even go to gather to mourn and be afraid to do so in Skokie? In Skokie. And then to have somebody come up here. I'm sorry that happened to you, Trustee Slovin. I'm sorry.
Robert Klein, Skokie resident. Mr. Mayor, I think I must have not been clear because it seemed that my comment really struck you personally. I thought I was in agreement with you that an inclusionary component of affordable housing is an important thing to have. You know, as Skokie's communication of its moral convictions and its ethical practices. And I want there to be. You know, Mr. Johnson voted for, what I'm saying is, I think that what was originally proposed and discussed has gotten so watered down and so moved away from the intent of the individuals it was hoping to serve that I think Skokie can do better. And I hope you will continue to work on this. I hope it won't be abandoned. I do think it's important. So I hope that that clarifies. Mr. Mayor, it also seems that I've heard you take things personally that may have just been voices of difference of opinion. And my belief is this is the forum to come in and offer opinions so that the best decisions can be made by the board. And let me be really clear. If this board, by having an ethics complaint waged against it, mandates that it have legal representation, I'm not arguing with that. Then I believe that Mr. Johnson, as a member of this board, should have that same support. He's a member of the board who has had an ethics complaint waged against him. He should have the same legal representation afforded to him. And my hope is that before we go that far, I think all the insights that need to be gleaned from actions against him have been clearly made. And I would please ask this board to just withdraw the complaint and get back to working as a board in the best interest of
Mr. Klein, we
Skokie.
didn't make the complaint. We didn't make.
Who is asking for
Mr.
$5,000?
That
Who's
was-
asking for $5,000 as a sanction of Mr. Johnson?
That is in the motion to dismiss. And in the village ethics ordinance provides that. It's up to the Ethics Commission. It's simply part of a motion, that is all. And it's up to the Ethics Commission, and it's in the ordinance. All we are doing is simply defending ourselves. You would do the same thing. You would defend yourself, and the village board is indemnified. It's in the ordinance. I don't know what more I can tell you.
I'm uncertain as to what you are defending yourself against.
Against the ethics complaint.
So there's an ethics complaint that was
Yes.
made.
Yes.
There's a question about whether this board and you, Mr.
And we're
Mayor,
defending ourselves.
acted within the boundaries of ethics. I don't understand.
And we're defending ourselves. We're
Okay.
saying we don't agree with the complaint, and we are giving our justification for it. We are entitled to defend ourselves.
Yes. It just seems that Mr. Johnson is also got a question of his ethics.
I have never, ever questioned Trustee Johnson's ethics. As a matter of fact, a couple meetings ago, when the village board was talking about the October 7th, I stood up for Trustee Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor.
And his right to speak.
And thank you for educating and
Well, no,
informing
but
me.
the point is, we are the subject of an ethics complaint. I don't mind people disagreeing on issues, but I do take real umbrage if somebody lodges a complaint about my ethics. And I have a right, as does everybody. We were named individually in the complaint.
Mhm.
And we were alleged to have done something unethical, and so we are simply defending ourselves.
Okay. I hope that you will also defend the board member at the side, or I hope you will urge that $5,000 fine to be lodged against him. I don't see that as beneficial, and if there's any agreement there, I hope you will use your voice as a board to just say, this is something that I think is a distraction, and we'd rather
Thank you,
just
Mr.
work as a
Klein.
board.
Jared Brozak from Optima in Skokie. I agree with the mayor that he has the right to defend himself, and I agree with the indemnification that that the board and the trustees should have to pay attorneys out of their own pocket. But the one thing I can't understand, defending yourself is one thing, going after someone else is another thing. You're seeking $5,000 to be fined against Mr. Johnson. That's not defending yourself. That's a counterclaim going after him for money, and you're hiring an attorney out of village money to pay to go after Mr. Johnson. That's separate from defending yourself. Going after someone for $5,000 is totally different, and the village is paying your attorney fees to go after Mr. Johnson for $5,000. I think you should defend yourself, and you may win, that's okay, but I think you should drop the part about going after him, because that's only going to silence dissent. That's wrong. Thank you.
And now for something completely different. First, I want to say that after watching the first October board meeting, I'm really happy that the board is considering a plastic bag ban, and also a phase out of gas-powered leaf blowers. I hope that the ban extends to all gas-powered lawn equipment. I love the cute little mower droids that the village has been using on the medians. Those are the droids you're looking for. Now, sorry. I would like to ask the village to consider starting to enforce some of the rules that are on the books. There's a law that relates, or I'm not sure if it's a law, ordinance, what the language would be, that relates to sustainability. And we have a rule about lawn sprinklers. And it states, and I quote, "Lawn sprinkling or irrigation, including but not limited to the use of automatic or oscillating sprinklers, is prohibited from May 15th through September 15th inclusive, from the hours of 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday." And yet, on any given day, you can walk down any street in Skokie and see people with the oscillating lawn sprinklers. And what's even worse is they have the ones that just pop up out of the lawn on a timer. They set to that to be like the middle of the day. And this is from Public Works. So the problem with doing this is that you're losing about half of that water to evaporation. And all of the embodied carbon that goes along with purifying that drinking water is just gone into the air. So I wonder, in terms of enforcement, if we could do something like what the village does with the cart hangers, where they go through and they look into people's garbage cans and recycling bins, and then if people put something in the wrong bin, they put a little hanger on their cart, and according to Public Works, this is very effective, and they only have to do it once. So I wonder if we can come up with some sort of enforcement mechanism like that. And then as far as the leaf blowers go, I was looking at what Evanston is doing for enforcement. And so they brought up this issue where it's not fair to penalize the person who's using the leaf blower if they're a landscaper, because they're just using the equipment their employer gave them. But instead, if you penalize the property owner, now all of a sudden it's the property owner's responsibility to make sure that their landscapers are not polluting the air and annoying all of their neighbors who are working from home. And I hope that we come up with some kind of way to enforce that, because right now the landscapers show up at whatever time of the morning and nothing happens to them. So we really need to make sure we have a way to enforce the rules that we're going to put on the books. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah. Mayor, I had a question. I hope I'm not totally out of order. But I just wanted to go back to the drive-through discussion.
Okay.
And I know Trustee Kuhn tabled it. I know Ralph, Trustee Klein, I'm sorry, said that there were some discussions that had taken place. And is it okay just to quickly talk about that? I don't know if it still needs to be voted, if that's past due, like what happens? Because I am okay with talking about my perspective and what I feel about that particular piece.
We can put it on the agenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to clarify,
I think my,
go ahead.
well, my concern was whether or not it would pass as is, and my suggestion would be to take it back to the planning commission for revision before it comes back to the board.
We would.
But I'll leave it up to the, I'll defer it up to the board.
We would have to have a motion to remand. And then if it passed, it could be sent back to the planning commission.
They're really, you know, we hate to get deep into Robert's Rules of Order and parliamentary, because the appearance sometimes is that one is obfuscating. but it's probably helpful at this point to give a quick definition. A motion to table cannot be set for a time certain. A motion to postpone can be set either for a date certain or just for some time in the future. A motion to table requires that there's a vote to bring it off the table at the next meeting or within, I believe it's the quarter of the year following. So I sometimes we get so deep in parliamentary that let's just talk about what we want to do. And I would suggest you, if your intention is to ask that it be reviewed further by staff, that a trustee here could simply say, we would like to have this further reviewed by staff, and let's not worry about the document itself, because likely it's going to change and come back. So let's not worry about, in my humble opinion, forgive me, let's not worry about what was presented and where it is and if it's tabled or postponed. Or if it's the will of the board, then the board can certainly instruct staff to look further at it, to have further conversation, and at that time, they can resubmit it.
Well, you can just bring it back. We can bring it back and put it on the board agenda. If you want it on for the next village board meeting, we'll put it back on.
Well, I know it was trustee Cohn's bill.
I would move that we take it back for staff review.
I concur.
Any debate? At long last, is there debate?
We're in public comments.
What?
We're in public comments.
I understand. But the board can make a motion.
Can a motion be made during public comments when we're not, this is not an agenda item about this?
The board can make a motion anytime it wants. It's your meeting.
Trustee Robinson, if you make a motion, I'll support it. Oh, sorry, or,
It was made, right?
oh, sorry, my bad, my bad.
Yeah.
Trustee Kuhn made the motion,
My apologies.
and Klein seconded it.
Correct.
All right.
Call the roll.
Trustee Sutker.
Aye.
Trustee Robinson.
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn.
Aye.
Trustee Johnson.
Aye.
Trustee Pure Slovin.
Aye.
Trustee Klein.
Aye.
Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye.
Thanks, I know that was probably out of order, but I know
Okay.
need to be done.
Thanks for clarifying. I have some-
Trustee Sutton.
No, I have some
No,
final,
Mayor, this is not a comment.
I have some final public comments. I'm going to speak for myself. Mayor and trustees, last month, the six of you collectively threatened me with a $5,000 fine because I filed an ethics complaint about you. And for the past 6 weeks, you've been using village funds to pay an outside attorney to retaliate against me because I filed this complaint. And I am not aware of anything like this ever happening with the village board. This is very significant. In August, I filed an ethics complaint with our Volunteer Ethics Commission. They are a 3-person board that has the power to investigate any ethics complaints against us, and if needed, they can make recommendations. I have asked for them to review what I have alleged to be very significant political conflicts of interest between our elected village board and our appointed legal department. Colleagues, in response to my ethics complaint, you have independently authorized up to $24,000 in village funds to pay an outside attorney to speak for you, to represent you before the Ethics Commission, to threaten me with a $5,000 fine, and to really brutally attack my character. Please keep in mind that my ethics complaint has not even been reviewed yet, and that it was submitted to an advisory commission that has no binding authority. And so I find your legal threats against me to be a really incredibly disproportionate and inappropriate response. Colleagues, in the next few months, if you choose to fine me $5,000 for filing a very sincere, very serious ethics complaint, this will have no impact on the actual policymaking that I am advocating for as a trustee. If this board wants actual conflict resolution, this board is going to have to resolve the actual conflict. We need to reform our legal department. We could have done it tonight, but my agenda item request was blocked again. Colleagues, as trustees, our job is to be legislators and policymakers And no matter what happens next, I am going to stay focused. I'm going to keep doing my job. And I am going to continue to advocate for a nonpartisan legal department that is free of political corruption. And I'm going to be advocating for this until we have a nonpartisan legal department that is free of political corruption. It is that simple. For now, that's all from me. I would really like to urge all of you to end the unnecessary legal threats against me. Thank you.
Trustee Sucker.
I move we adjourn.
Okay.